Let's talk about seeding stuff. You're excited about the possibility the Lakers could fall to a 6 seed, but we should go through all the ramifications. Want to start there? Go. Why are you so fascinated by this Lakers thing right now?
This is not. I'm worried about the Lakers. They look terrible against the Clippers. That's to be expected. No LeBron, no AD. The AD thing is weird because it just becomes to be like it's almost like the Durant thing. We're like, hey, no timetable, no timetable, and then LeBron tweeted about how much he missed basketball, so that was covered. And then 4 to 6 weeks out on that timetable, despite people were saying like he might come back a little bit earlier. They've been really good still defensively, but it's not unrealistic that they're a 6 seed and they play the Clippers as a 3 seed in the first round, and then Phoenix in the second round, and then Utah in the Western Conference Finals. Like, the funny thing is that LeBron is absolutely right about the comeback against Golden State being one of the most difficult championships ever to win when you look at who Golden State was that year. No question. Then to say the previous title because the bubble was the toughest, you're like, I don't know about that. The opponents. But this run of opponents for a Lakers team that, you still want to give the benefit of the doubt to, especially after the way they turned around after the bubble last year. But that's a pretty ridiculous run of teams you'd have to go through just to get out of the West. No?
Well, right now, so I wrote these down. I don't know if we had games tonight that change this, but Utah and Phoenix seem like they're relatively locked into the 1-2 unless Phoenix goes into a tailspin, which could happen. Like Chris Paul could get hurt, whatever. But Utah's 38-11, Phoenix 34-14. Clippers are 33-18. Lakers 31-19, Denver 30-18, Portland 30-19. That's going to be our 3, 4, 5, 6 in some order. Clippers, Lakers, Denver, Portland. But Portland's only a half game behind the Lakers now. There's no sign of LeBron coming back. There's no sign of Davis coming back. And I think you're right, especially with what Gordon, I think we all were hoping Gordon could look like, a rich man's Millsap in that spot. And for what we've seen so far, it's been a nice addition. And it made them deeper. It gave them 30 minutes of somebody else, which I think they really needed. And I think the Lakers are going to be the 6 seed. I think this is how this plays out. Dallas is the 7 seed, and Dallas is starting to come on a little bit. Two things are fascinating here for me. One is that the 1 seed is like incredibly important because if you're the 2 seed, you have to play Dallas in round 1. I don't want to play Dallas. I don't want to have Luka in a series. Like, fuck that. If you're the 1 seed, you're playing, San Antonio, Memphis, Golden State, Sacramento, and New Orleans, which is great. You also get to have the Lakers. If you end up playing them in a playoff round, Game 7's in Utah. Utah's undefeated this season, by the way, at home.
No, they're not. They're not undefeated. They lost their first 2, so they've won all of these games in a row. Yeah.
How many have they won in a row?
Is it 22 in a row? 21 in a row? Yeah, I think they lost their first 2 at home.
So Phoenix, who is like, man, we're riding high. This is awesome. And then it's like, cool, we get Luka in round 1 as a 2 seed, which just sucks. And then if you're the Clippers, I think I would want the Lakers in round 1. I think my best chance to beat them is round 1 with we're only 22, 23 games away from the playoffs right now, right? It's going to be the end of May. So we're, 6, 7 weeks away. I would want to catch the Lakers right as people are still getting used to each other and LeBron and Drummond have only had a couple weeks and Davis isn't 100% healthy. I'd want to get them right away. And then the other piece would be the 4 or 5. It seems like we're headed for Denver, Portland again, unless Denver can jump the Clippers. But Denver, Portland, would be another epic one. So I don't know. Once you mentioned the seedings to me and I started doing the matchups, I got all fired up about it.
You love them. No one.
Well, I love that. I think this West one's going to be really good because I think those 7 teams are really fun to watch. I think Dallas is back. I don't think Dallas is going to win the title, but I think they're at least to be taken seriously in a playoff round.
Can we back up to something you said, though? Because when you said the Clippers would want the Lakers in round 1, you mean that as what's the best time to get the Lakers? Because you can't possibly argue you'd rather play the Lakers than the Trailblazers in the 3-6 matchup if you're the Clippers, right?
I'm saying I would rather, if I have to play the Lakers in round 1, 2, or 3, I would rather play them in round 1.
I would rather just play Portland, and then I'll see whoever I see in the second round. Come on, dude. Think about what you're saying here. I know what you mean as far as the vulnerability and getting the start of the playoff, but as far as like who do we face first, and I'm the Clippers and all that history in this city, no. Sign me up for Portland.
But what if Davis is like 85% still playing his way back? I think I'd rather take him. I disagree.
Okay.
You know, I love the show The Challenge on MTV. I've always been of the theory, like, just I have to go through these guys anyway. I'm throwing CT in now in the second episode. Let's just go. Let's go down in the elimination now. I'd rather get you when you're just getting your legs back. You're just whatever. I'd rather play you early if you don't know who you are yet. I think this Lakers team is going to take a while to figure out what they are, how healthy they are, what their rotations are, things like that.
Wait, so was that with the Miz?
Yeah, he's not on it anymore. He graduated.
I met him. Didn't go well.
Didn't go. A lot of testosterone.
No, he was a prick. He was a total prick. And I was like, all right, we got it. Cool.
So the seedings could be, let's say San Antonio advances. Utah, San Antonio, Phoenix, Dallas, Clips, Portland, Lakers, Denver. And then you go to the East. Philly, Brooklyn, Milwaukee are the top three in some order. Then the 4 seed is going to be Charlotte, Miami, or Atlanta. I think Charlotte's done. I watched them against the Celtics today. They've lost the Hayward thing. Hayward going out for 4 weeks, I think, is a way bigger injury for them than LaMelo. They don't have anybody who replaces him. They ran a lot of the offense through him. He was playing really well. He's a 20 points a game guy. They don't really have a backup for him that does any of the stuff that he did for them. And now they're just a bunch of guards chucking up shots. I could see them falling all the way into the play-in. I think that's great for Miami. So then you have the Knicks, Boston, Indiana, and Chicago kind of in that waiting for any of those 4 teams to wake up. Who would you pick to as a waiting to wake up team? New York, Boston, Indiana, or Chicago? I think Boston's probably the safest bet.
They're the most talented. This team is disappointing. That win today against the Hornets means nothing. I mean, look, the Hornets had a guy in there from Nova Scotia. They had another guy I'd never heard of. I mean, you know how hard it is, how rare it is. This guy, I'm like, I don't know who that is. And he's in the game. I mean, it got so weird. Romeo Langford was playing, and they took Romeo Langford out of garbage time. And then Carson Edwards is like, he's like, I don't watch adult films. I get into 30-point games. Like, here we go. Does Carson Edwards, when you're playing pool with him and you're trying to rack the ball, like, are you taking him out? Does he just start smashing the cue ball in, like, as you're trying to set up, and you go, Carson, can you just stop for a second and let me rack the balls, and then you can hit them? Anyway,
for Charlotte, they had one twin in, they had one Martin twin in, and then he came out. The other Martin twin replaced him. I was like, oh man, it's gotten grim. They're just rotating the Martin twins. This has gotten ugly.
Celtics, I don't like them. I don't like them, but I mean, talent-wise, between them and the Knicks, are you kidding? And then I wonder if there's this Knicks thing that's balancing things out. Because like the first half of the season, I saw a great stat somebody had that was going around where the percentage of opposing threes and like uncontested threes was off the charts low. And it was just one of those things that didn't mean anything. It just, hey, people missed more open threes against you, maybe at the lowest level at anyone in the league. So look for that to balance things out. You know, I could look at projected schedule strength and all that stuff, but dude, this is going to get really ugly. I mean, I was looking at last Saturday. Did you watch the games last Saturday? I go, is there another All-Star break that I didn't know about that like select 30 guys just said, hey, we're out. We're not playing tonight. So it even like if you start doing the playoff matchups at the end of the year, being like, hey, they were 2 and or 4-0 against them or whatever, I'm going to be like, I don't know how much that's going to matter, because when did you get him? Did you get him with a bunch of games in a row? Or, all these games where I feel like whoever wins the first one and then the 24, 48 hour turnaround, they always lose the second one. I feel that way. I may not be right about it, but that Pacers thing that we mentioned before, I think they're having a really hard time with the LeVert deal. Vooch has put up some nice numbers, but it hasn't necessarily worked for Chicago. They got their first win against the Nets, who were sitting a bunch of guys other than Kyrie. So yeah, I think through it all, unless maybe Atlanta's the better call because other guys are making shots, and they've fixed their defense here a little bit. I would say Atlanta or Boston, and the only one is because of Boston's talent. Despite the fact 50 games in, I don't really like watching it.
The Boston thing is grim, but there's signs of hope that they finally have all their guys together. Time Lord's starting to play more. Fournier starting to, I mean, you saw it today. I mean, granted, they're playing Charlotte, but Fournier comes in, he scores 12 points in 15 minutes. Those were minutes that were being manned by Semi Ojeleye, Javonte Green, all that stuff. He's worth a couple points a game. That trade was really important for them. There's some sort of weird energy with them that I can't put my finger on, where there's a lack. We were talking a couple weeks ago about soft, and I don't even know if soft's the right word. Like, there's a lack of pride in some of these games with them. But then I watch other games in League Pass. It feels like we have a disproportionate amount of 20-point, 25-point blowouts, right? Last night, it felt like every game was not close.
Last night was a special, right? You would have thought some kid was screwing around with .com or something. You're like, wait a minute, there's no way this team's up 40 already. Like, what the hell's going on? But I actually think, as ugly as it's been at times, it's going to get uglier. I want to throw this to you, though. I was told during the Celtics struggles without Marcus Smart, I was told by the Marcus Smart militia that this is why he deserves everything. And him coming back, I just would pose the question to how come everything wasn't fixed when he came back?
Solid question. He's not playing well. There's no other way to say it. So in the East, I saw an ad today watching the terrible Clippers-Lakers. Poor ABC has gotten hammered on these Sunday games. The Clippers-Lakers, they ran an ad for the play-in games, which are May 18th. It's April 4th. That's less than 6 weeks away. I got excited. Play-in games. It's going to be unbelievable. You think like, say in the East, where we could have like Boston could be the 7th seed. It could be like Boston, New York, Chicago, Indy, something like that. They're teams that I like watching Chicago. If Chicago's in a play-in game, I would be excited. I like their 9. I've enjoyed Patrick Williams. I like seeing Vooch, the early returns. Seeing my old friend Daniel Tice, who drove me crazy. Now he's on another team. I get to root for him. But I don't know. I'm going to enjoy the play-in games. The West is a little more grim because other than New Orleans, when you get into that San Antonio, Memphis, Golden State looks like they might go sideways. Would they lose by like 53 the other night or 63?
Yeah, they were down 60 something and they lost by 53, I think.
And then you have New Orleans at 21-27, who is probably the worst coach team in the league, all things considered, out of all the teams that are actually talented, that do dumb shit over and over again. And yet their best guy is averaging 62% from field goals and is completely unstoppable. And I just would not want to play him in a play-in game. I'm sorry. If they're the 10 seed, I'd be bummed out. You're Dallas. You're like, cool. We'll get in there. We'll get the 7 seed. We'll play Phoenix. And then it's like, well, wait a second. You've got to play this team that their best guy makes 62% of his shots, or you have to foul him. That's going to be your opponent for the play-in game. Good luck.
What if it's JJ Redick revenge game? If the Pelicans get that 7-10. Here's the thing, though. I would, if I played the Pelicans in the play-in game, if I coached Dallas, if I were Rick Carlisle, I would just tell one of the guys, I'm like, every time Brandon Ingram, you are on Ingram, be like, man, they don't run enough shit for you. They got to get you the ball more. Like, I can't believe all this Zion stuff. Like, you're better than he is, right? And then just be like, this is going to be perfect. But honestly, I think Dallas is, I'm with you. You're not picking Dallas to come out of the West. You're just saying, hey, the early stuff and feeling better about them and having a few more options. Although it just feels out of central casting. They're like, hey, can we add one more really long kind of white guy that's a perimeter dude? Be like, yeah, we can. Like, sick.
Melly's one of those dudes. He's like an actor who's just been in a series of terrible movies, but you kind of wanted him to see him in this movie where he's basically Maxi Kleber's stand-in. It's like going to stand in Maxi's spot.
So it's the Joey Pants Award, right? So I was watching The Fugitive on a flight the other day, and they show up to the train scene where people didn't realize, like, hey, this Tommy Lee Jones performance, get used to it because you're going to see this one for about 20 years now. Not that he wasn't amazing when he did some other things, but he had just nailed it. We're like, all right, you were so good at the train scene. We're putting you in front of a volcano. But Joey Pants gets out of the thing and he's like, it's a circus. I immediately thought of you.
Do you think of Melly?
Yeah, because I think you could call it the Melly Award. But I don't want to change it's your show. Rewatches was yours. I just get an invite, so I appreciate it. I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Let me give you 3 teams, and you tell me if they're better off just throwing away these last 20 games and going for a top 10 pick. Not that they will, because I think the playing game has properly incentivized a lot of these teams. Indiana. Are they better off just saying, yeah, this season sucked. TJ Warren got hurt. We had this weird old Depot situation. We kind of outsmarted ourselves. We brought LeVert in. He's a terrible fit with what we have. And maybe we just punt on this season. I know they won't. I know they can't. They have healthy guys. It's not like they can. But I'm just saying, in a perfect world, if you're the Pacers, do you really care if you make the play-in game?
I'm probably going to say no to almost all these, so I don't want to ruin your segment. So maybe I should just pass it right back to you on it. But I'll only answer the Pacers one with, I kind of like what the roster could be. So I would rather not be in the play-in game and get like lucky in the lottery, because I don't know that you're going to be sniffing in the top of the lottery anytime soon. Because I do like the team when it's normal. And yeah, it could be too many guys. And it looks like there's times where Brogdon is like, what are we doing here? And I know he's missed some games. I don't know how many off the top of my head here. And even Thomas has probably looked at the LeVert thing being like, we had some nice rhythm here offensively, but at least LeVert is still talented and maybe a piece, and the way the contract and the control. So I'm not necessarily like, I know I've sounded anti-LeVert here, but let me go back to you. Why don't you make the argument for it? Because I just think there's so many times with young teams who are like, oh, that playoff experience, it's so valuable. You're like, really? Getting your ass kicked in a 1-8, you're just going to grow from that emotionally? I don't know that that's really true.
For the Pacers, I would want to be in the playing game, and I would talk myself into a reality of these guys just need to gel. Okay. We have talent. Brogdon and Sabonis are good. Fuck it. Let's see what happens. The next team, though, Toronto. To me, that's a punt. So you go to Lowry and you say, hey, man, big free agency coming up for you. Last big contract. There's a lot of money out there. This might be our best chance to get like a top 8 pick. I know your knees bothering you. I know your foot's whatever's bothering you. I know something on your body's bothering you. Let's just call it quits. I know they won't do this because Nick Nurse has already come out and he has said, I want to make the playoffs. We are not tanking. I hate tanking. I'm just saying, in the perfect world, if you're a Raptors fan, where are you going with this team? Yeah, maybe you could win a playing game, but you're not winning a round one. You're so close to actually being able to get a top 8 pick, and you can write this. This year's a write-off. This year's a sunk cost. You had the Tampa thing. You had your 2 big guys leave. It's a write-off. I know they can't do it because it's basketball, but to me, that's the team that should be thinking about how to weasel out of this.
I would agree. I'm going to agree on almost all of these. I think the only time that you're going to hear an argument against it would be so Atlanta makes it. Now, they're the 6. What if they hit a rough patch again here and they're in the play-in game and whatever? There's no version of them tanking or anything like that, but you could see them saying, us being able to come out of this year as a playoff team means something. And
I think Atlanta has to go for it.
Right. And they are. So I mean, I'm simply saying, of any of these teams, this is the group that you make the argument for. I think Chicago feels like, hey, another year with Levine, we made the Vooch trade. We want to be able to say we're a playoff team. Now, I think these are short-term wins that can be really overstated, and in the big picture don't really mean anything. Like, just because you got in and you snuck in, it doesn't mean you always grow. All right. Some people remember when Detroit made it and they had that 1-8 matchup with Cleveland, and it was like, you know what? Look out for Detroit next year. Stanley Johnson. You see what he did against LeBron? And you're like, didn't they get swept? I mean, what? Like, did they really? You know what I mean? Like, I think we overstate that a lot. So I don't know if any of it has any real value.
I like it when it's a young team. I think it really helped the Celtics to get in there in the 16, 17 range with some of those young guys. I think it helped Memphis last year just to be in that play-in game and just have a taste of what it's like to have a real game with real stakes and real pressure and things like that. So Atlanta to me is a no-brainer. Golden State is a fascinating one because you could argue they had the year from hell. Wiseman, I think, is more of a project than maybe we anticipated. Maybe this is his redshirt season. Draymond can't score anymore. Curry has an incredible amount of pressure on him in these games. Not that Dame Lillard doesn't, by the way, but the fact that they're 23 and 26 kind of seems like a miracle. It doesn't feel like a lot of things have gone right for them. And you could argue if you're them, let's say that Minnesota pick is like 4th or 5th. And let's say that Golden State pick is like 9th or 10th, and you have Clay coming back. Were you winning the title this year without Clay? No. Fundamentally, they're probably better off not even being in the playing game. But I know that organization is not going to go for that.
No, it doesn't sound like it. And that's the whole reason why they did the Oubre deal. And again, why I don't, some of these trades things, like some of the things didn't happen because it was just tougher to figure out. Like Golden State couldn't take more salary back. The Lakers, it was really hard for them to take a deal back where they were taking on more money, even if they thought they were close on some stuff. I think the biggest thing for Golden State is looking at their own pick now, the Minnesota pick. And then, Wiseman, I think, is in a tough spot because if Wiseman were on one of these horrible teams with no winning pedigree, without like real guys, where Curry was arguably like in the MVP conversation with the stuff that he was doing, Wiseman's held to a different standard. So when he screws up, it's worse. Where if he were with some of these other organizations, it'd be like, hey, who got 20 and 12 again the other night? Wiseman. He's awesome. And it might be worse for him long term for his career. So maybe these bumps are good for him early on, but a healthy Curry in a playoff game is kind of exciting, but it really should be about packaging those picks for the next mad superstar that goes, I'm going to play with the best backcourt of all time.
That is a team in a playing game people would not be fired up to see. The Golden State thing, we got to do this quickly. There was this weird LeBron is recruiting Curry story that just seemed like sheer boredom from the media. I don't know where it was coming from. I don't know why anybody who's followed Curry's career at any point would think, A, he would ever leave Golden State. B, he would want to like jump on the LeBron bandwagon and like be LeBron's sidekick. The whole thing was bizarre to me. I don't think it's been the tightest relationship over the years. I'm sure they get along better than maybe they used to be, but I thought that was one of the weirder fake stories that we've had. If he was ever going to go anywhere, the only place that makes sense is Charlotte, to go home where his dad is and, the place that he grew up as a kid. And if he was ever going to leave someday to finish his career somewhere, it's going to be Charlotte. It's not going to be LeBron's lackey. It's not happening.
Well, Windhorst brought it up, and I believe the part of LeBron thinking he's recruiting Steph because it was odd. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, like you like Steph? Because LeBron completely resented the idea that Steph was considered the best player in the world. And you know what? LeBron proved that it wasn't accurate. Steph had better seasons than LeBron during those years. He had better full end-to-end seasons than back-to-back MVP seasons. Like, Steph should not have been the MVP, but then it turns into, okay, Steph's the best player in the world because he was having better seasons. And LeBron's like, yeah, actually, there's stuff I can do in a playoff game that he can't do. All right? And as much as I love Steph, the biggest Steph lover has to admit that. And LeBron resented it. But LeBron is so powerful. He's arguably the most powerful individual athlete of our lifetime as far as team sports are concerned, that he is always thinking of these angles. And so I thought it was weird when I'd see some of the interactions during All-Star Weekend where I was like, wait, so he picked him and then he's like talking him up. And you're like, motherfucker, you had a corpse at your Halloween party that you walked over on the way in. And so, look, LeBron, when he took Giannis in the first draft, that was a way of, now this is, I think, a comical waste of time that like Giannis would be a free agent and be like, you know what, LeBron did take me first overall in that first